Chilling words from an illegal immigrant after he was convicted of murdering 2 law enforcement officers. Luis Bracamontes promised those inside a Sacramento County courtroom on Friday that he would, quote, kill more cops soon. During the trial last month, the defendant said he wished he had killed more police officers, if you can believe that. Against this backdrop, the Senate began debate today on immigration reform. But Democrats don't appear interested in making a deal for the so-called Dreamers. Remember, they rejected President Trump's offer to give amnesty to 1.8 million illegal immigrants, and now seem intent on pounding Republicans as anti-immigrant. To discuss, I'm joined by Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar and Republican Congressman Todd Rokita. But let's also get perspective from Pam Davis Owens in Reno, Nevada. Her nephew, Placer County Detective Michael Davis, was one of the 2 officers murdered by Bracamontes. Pam, thank you so much for making the trip and talking to us tonight. I think it's really important in this conversation that we keep American citizens who've had a direct, horrible impact from uncontrolled borders in this conversation, because they rarely get attention that they deserve. So thank you for joining us. Yes, Pam, your reaction to what you're seeing happen on Capitol Hill today and this week with a push for ultimate amnesty for as many as 1.8, but if the Democrats had their way, many more than 1.8 million individuals in the United States.
I am against amnesty, 100% against the amnesty. For the DACA people, I do feel bad for them. I'm okay with a path to citizenship for the kids who were brought here, not for the parents who brought them, not for their aunts, uncles, cousins. The government is here to protect the American citizens and the legal immigrants, not the illegal aliens.
Pam, tell me about your nephew. It was one of the most heartbreaking of stories over the past few years. I mean, I track a lot of crime stories, and just because I care so much about the victims. But that was a horrific day for the California PD, but obviously for your family.
Yeah. Michael was a wonderful, wonderful person. And he was the kind of guy who, I don't care if you were somebody he had arrested or his best friend, his partner, or a family member, if you asked for help, he was the first one there to help. And because his father was killed in the line of duty on the same date, he generally never worked that day. Why he was working that day, I don't know. But the difference between when my brother was killed in 1988, that was an accident. This was completely, totally, a murder that could have been avoided if the government had done the one thing they're supposed to do, which is protect the citizens.
And did you ever hear after the murder of your nephew, did you hear much from the politicians in California? Any calls or offers of help or concern?
Tom McClintock, from day one, has been very, very, very supportive.
Republican.
And Republican, yes. No Democrats, none at all. In fact, I was
Wait a second.
Pam,
I actually didn't know the answer to that question before I asked it. It's kind of not what you're supposed to do in TV. I'm supposed to know the answer, but I didn't know the answer. I guessed the answer, and I'm actually sad that I was right. So Nancy Pelosi, who was on her feet for 8 hours last week, in the pseudo filibuster for the illegal immigrants, the so-called Dreamers, she never picked up the phone to call you?
Nope.
You got to be kidding me.
There wasn't one Democrat. And in fact, when Camelia Harris was at the May 15th officer memorial, and she was terrible. She made us angry at her lack of caring. And now that she's not, I get so angry even thinking about it.
So just again, we're going to go to the congressman next, Pam. But your nephew is gunned down. California police officer, a day when 2 were killed. We have an unremorseful, guilty as hell, illegal immigrant in the United States who's never been here. You didn't get a call from Pelosi, Feinstein. You didn't get a call from the former mayor of San Francisco. None of these people called you. Not one person. Did any of them show up at the funeral?
The governor did, but it was because he felt he had to.
All right.
It wasn't very sincere.
All right, Pam, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Again, a story which you're not going to hear from many other shows, and I just appreciate your being with us, and God bless you and your family, and I know how difficult all of this is for you. I want to go to the congressman now. Congressman Cuellar, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for joining us, because not a lot of Democrats decide to come on Fox, and I really appreciate your coming on to share your perspective on this issue. Really do appreciate it. And Congressman Rakita, obviously in Indianapolis, you guys have been dealing with the aftermath of a very popular NFL star who was killed in a DUI by an illegal immigrant who's since been deported. But let's start with you, Congressman Cuellar. You hear the anguish of Pam, whose nephew was a phenomenal human being and gunned down, killed a few years ago by an illegal immigrant, just sentenced a few days ago. What do you say after hearing that anguish in her voice?
Well, first of all, I mean, I can understand what she's going through. I got 3 brothers who are peace officers. In fact, one of them was a undercover narcotics officer and then became a lieutenant in charge of narcotics. And he also, right now, he's a border sheriff. So I know what it is to have brothers that are peace officers and not knowing what could happen from one day to the other. So I understand what it is to have 3 family members that are peace officers. And again, to me, it doesn't matter if that person who killed a peace officer is documented or undocumented or somebody that's here. You know, whoever goes after a peace officer, we need to make sure that we throw the book at that individual. Well,
yeah, but obviously it makes it worse, does it not? And Congressman Rakita, we'll get to you on this. I want to have you both on radio tomorrow as well. He obviously shouldn't have been in the country, so they would still be alive, most likely be alive. That's what makes it worse. And I know Congress is working on this bill and the push for legalization and some more enforcement provisions, changes to the immigration. But I got to tell you, I think people are fed up with this crime, and this has got to stop. This is madness.
Laura, if I can jump in, I like to say that this was completely preventable. Had we had a wall system, had we believed in enforcing a federal immigration law, what happened to the Colts player and my constituent, Jeffrey Monroe, last week wouldn't have happened. So these things are completely preventable. But we have, for the first time, this goes back to Ms. Owens' comments, for the first time, Laura, in American history, we have a political party, the modern Democratic Party, who is putting the interest of illegal aliens, of lawbreakers, ahead of law-abiding citizens, Americans. It hasn't really happened before until now, and you're exactly right. Nancy Pelosi, I watched her, stood on the House floor for 8 hours for illegal immigrants, but wouldn't do it for Mrs. Owens' family. That's ridiculous.
Congressman Cuellar, my thought here, and maybe you disagree, is that the Democrats, for all their talk about caring about what happens to the Dreamers, they have it in the hand. 1.8 million will get amnesty. I actually don't even agree with it, but they'll get it if they go along with this deal. But it seems like they don't want the deal. Am I misreading this?
Well, I can't speak for anybody, but I'll speak for myself. First of all, the last time we had amnesty was under a president, a Republican president named Ronald Reagan, working with the Democratic Congress. That was amnesty. Now, what point are we going to get over here? Are we going to do legalization? Are we going to do something else? I don't know. That's something that we have to work out. But you got to understand that whatever we do, changes affecting the Dreamers legalization. People like myself that live on the border, we don't just come in and come to the border, spend a few hours, and we think we know this, because if you look at the crime rate here at the border using the FBI statistics, the crime rate here, let's say Laredo, my hometown, or just the crime rate along the border is lower than the national crime rate. In fact, the most dangerous thing about me being here on the border is, well, let me finish. The most dangerous thing that I have here at the border is when I leave to go work in Washington, D.C. I'm not talking about the politics, but the crime rate is much higher in Washington, D.C.
I don't even dispute that, but all I can say is, guys, we're going to have you back on radio. I know this was short because Pam, we had to hear her story. But the idea that we should have more border crossings because it's so safe in Laredo, I just don't think you're going to win a lot of support on that argument, Congressman. But I get what you're saying.
Oh, we will. We will.
I
It's
hope we have
ridiculous,
progress
Laura.
on this. Yeah, Congressman Rokita, I appreciate it. I hope we make progress on this. And up next,